Good morning. Bonjour. My name is Martha Crago, and I'm the Dean of Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies at McGill University. And it is my very great honor to introduce you to this morning's event. But before I begin my more formal introduction, I need to remind you to turn your cell phones off. And I need to ask everyone except for the two official photographers to please not take any photos or videotapes until the end of the talk, out of respect for our speaker. Alors, s'il vous plaît, fermez les cellulaires. Et la prise des photographes et des vidéos n'est pas permise pendant l'allocution de Madame Ebadi. Je veux aussi expliquer que pour ceux qui écoutent la traduction en français, il y aura un petit retard parce que le farci de Madame Ebadi sera traduit premièrement en anglais et ensuite en français. Our most respected guest, Dr. Shirin Ebadi, Minister of Justice, Erwin Kotler, Vice Principal Urtubis, Professor Shepard, alumni, students, postdocs, staff, professors, members of the Board of Governors, members of the National Assembly, and friends. Welcome. Bienvenue à McGill. Khush Amadid. Welcome to today's Beatty Memorial Homecoming Lecture. It's the second in a series entitled Ideas for the World. Those of you who are students, postdocs, staff, and professors, you, like I, come home to McGill every day. Alumni, we welcome you back home from far and from near. Montreal friends, we hope you will consider McGill a part of your wider Montreal home and heritage. And a special greeting to those of you who are watching via the web, either on the MacDonald campus or in Leacock 132 or in your own homes. Voilà, à cet événement, nous sommes tous chez nous. So today's talk is what we hope will be one of many talks at Homecoming that celebrate and bring to us powerful ideas. Ideas to elucidate our lives and to help us understand the world around us. Ideas that advance critical thinking. Ideas that lead to action. It's also a celebration of the many great ideas that have been born and shared at McGill University over the years. Ideas are, after all, the very stuff of education. And education, as a colleague recently reminded me, is one of the world's greatest assets in times of political uncertainty. Universities, for their part, offer a space to discuss, to disagree, to debate, and to explore ideas in a safe haven that strives to be respectful of a diversity of beliefs and opinions. And it is in this spirit that McGill University is proud to bring you today's event. I'll now ask Professor Colleen Shepard, a specialist in human rights and constitutional law from McGill's Faculty of Law, to introduce Dr. Shirin Ebadi to you. And after the talk, there will be time for a few questions, and then we will have closing remarks by Vice Principal Jacques Urtubis. Professor Shepard.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. I am deeply honored to have the opportunity to introduce to you Dr. Shirin Ebadi, winner of the Nobel Peace Prize in 2003. Dr. Ebadi was born and raised in Iran. She graduated from law at the University of Tehran and became Iran's first woman judge in 1975. She served as president of the City Court of Tehran until 1979, when she was forced to resign in the wake of the conservative revolution in Iran. It was at this time that she began practicing law. As a lawyer, she has worked tirelessly for human rights, involving herself in dangerous and highly politicized cases. Most notably, she represented the families of political dissidents, including writers and intellectuals murdered in the late 1990s. She also represented students and their families when a number of students were killed in an attack at Tehran University in 1999. As a consequence of her legal activism, Dr. Ebadi has been imprisoned by Iranian authorities on more than one occasion. She has also acted on behalf of the family of Canadian journalist Ms. Zara Kazemi, who died in prison while being detained in Iran. Dr. Ebadi's work defending human rights was recognized in 2001 when she was awarded the Human Rights Rafto Prize. In 1996, Human Rights Watch honored Dr. Ebadi for her promotion of human rights in Iran. In addition to advocating for freedom of speech, political belief, and opinion, Dr. Ebadi has been an activist for women's rights and children's rights. She has been engaged in long-standing efforts to reform Iranian divorce and inheritance laws to advance the rights of women. In so doing, she has articulated a reformed understanding of Islam that embraces the rights of women to justice and equality. As well, she is the founder and leader of the Association for Support of Children's Rights in Iran. Beyond her work as a lawyer, Dr. Ebadi is a scholar and teacher at the University of Tehran. She has published articles and books on children's rights and human rights. In promoting an interpretation of Islamic law that is respectful of vital human rights, Professor Ebadi is a voice of hope, rejecting a clash of cultures ideology and reminding us that Muslims, Christians, and Jews have long histories of coexisting peacefully and in harmony. In recognition of her work and achievements, Dr. Ebadi received the Nobel Peace Prize in 2003. She is the first Muslim woman to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. Rare is the occasion when we find ourselves in the presence of an intellect articulating ideas about justice, democracy, equality, religious freedom, and human rights, whose life provides such a powerful testament to the willingness to live according to one's ideas, to act according to one's beliefs, to accept the consequences, risks, and dangers of living a principled, engaged life, an individual whose life reveals an unwavering commitment to connecting the ideals of human rights to the daily realities of social injustice. Such an intellect brings to the world of ideas a deep urgency, a passionate relevance that makes the educational project of universities, of schools, of lifelong learning, a project situated at the heart of social justice, democracy, and peace. It is therefore with our deepest respect and gratitude that I welcome Dr. Ebadi this morning to speak to us about democracy, the precondition to peace. Dr. Ebadi.
Of McGill University. Respected principal of university. Honorable Justice Minister. Dear professors. Dearest students. Dear audience. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy that today I am addressing you in this celebrated institution. A university is a true home and a real asylum for all those who assign spirituality top priority in their activities. For those who bestowed themselves to humanity, those who are proud, who are not proud of their bank account, but they are proud of the number of books they have published. Proud of students they have educated, not material things. There are many Iranian students who study at the university, studied and are studying generously. You have given your knowledge to my compatriots. You have educated my compatriots. I thank you. Also, some of the best Iranian professors in this university are teaching in this university. These professors and students, in fact, are cultural ambassadors of Iran to Canada. Undoubtedly, the influence of different cultures on each other and acquaintances with the cultures of different nations pave the way for a universal peace. But of course, such influence, if it's one-sided, cannot work one-sided. And it would lead to assimilation of one culture by the dominant culture. And this would lead to nations to be destroyed. This would destroy nations. We are living in an era of globalization, in an era that gradually the borders are disappearing, and the geographical borders are not identifying a country. It is their cultures. If we cannot preserve our culture and language, we would disappear. Iran is not only a place on the globe. But Iran lives in the soul and heart of every Iranian. Iran will live with its culture and preservation of its national traditions, its language, its literature, its music, and its art will exist only with all these things. It is our responsibility to pass this tradition to future generations, as it was passed from one chest to another chest, from one generation to us. Where did the Egyptian civilization go? A civilization which ruled during its time, was in control of its time, the Egyptian civilization was destroyed by Islamic civilization. And it went through such sudden transformation that today there is no sign of ancient Egyptian, ancient language, Egyptian language and Egyptian culture. But we preserved Iran. We accepted Islam as a religion, but we did not lose our Iranian identity. Even now, in some parts of Iran, for example, Abyane, they speak in Pahlavi Dari language. Beware, do not lose the heritage of our ancestors. Beware. Beware, don't forget our national heritage. Become a person with no root, no foundation. Intercultural relationships should not result in cultural assimilation. In cultural assimilation by the dominant culture. Different cultures can find, with preserving their own distinctiveness, find mutuality and similarity with respect towards their distinctiveness. They should identify their mutual needs, and they should fulfill those needs equally. Democracy and human rights are the mutual needs of all cultures and all societies. Those who do not rest in the name of cultural relativism, do not respect human rights and democracy in the name of cultural relativism, or indeed disguising their dictatorial, tyrannic nature with they're disguising their dictatorial nature with cultural mask. They attempt, in the name of national culture or religious culture, they attempt to violate their nation. Unfortunately, recently, another excuse is given for violation of human rights, and that is the theme of national security. War against terrorism is, of course, a legal and rightful struggle. However, it should be within the framework of regulations related to human rights. And it should be regulated within human rights. We should not exaggerate lack of security so that with that excuse one can suppress any opponent voice. In the name of conspiracy theory, which is in fashion in many countries, and through creating hypothetical enemies and paying extreme attention to possible enemies, one must not allow to limit legal freedom of a nation. Unfortunately, this fashion of limitation seems to exist in Western countries, for instance, the United States, as well as in Islamic countries, such as Iran. It seems to exist. Under this situation, the task of defenders of human rights has become more difficult than in the past. They, the human rights activists, continue their tasks under all kinds of limitations, threats, and even loss of life. They continue their efforts in order to make human rights universal. Until everybody can enjoy human rights. In Iran, struggles for advancement of democracy are going on, have resulted in the imprisonment of human rights activists, the defenders of freedom of speech. Many are in jail. I praise the memory of people such as Saber, Ali Jani, Rahmani, Yusefi Eshkebari, Akbar Ganji, Nasser Zarafshan, Hashem Aqajari, Siamak Puzan, Ali Reza Jabbari, and many others. Who are in chain because of their desire to bring freedom to people. And also, I praise the memory of those, the marchers of freedom in Iran, Zahra Kazemi, who with her death voiced the truth which did not fit in her camera. Muhammad Mukhtari, Muhammad Jafar Puyande, Saidi Sirjani, Dariush, and Parvane Furuhar, Zalzadeh. Dr. Hossein Fatemi, Karimpur Shirazi, and many more who have lost their lives since long ago in history for freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm coming from the Middle East. A land under anarchy and destruction. It has been years that its innocent people are being burned in the fire of war. And the flames are getting larger and larger. There are some discussions talking about changing the map of the Middle East. And this is a sign of cursed goals that are planned for this part of the world. It appears as if they are talking about democracy and human rights. However, we know the real goal is plunder the national wealth. In the process, many innocent human beings are killed. Many homes destroyed. And in the ruins of war, people ask this question: Who designed such fate for us? As a Muslim who lived all my life in Iran, I'm somehow familiar with the political situation in Muslim countries in this region. I must say, there are two reasons involved and create these things. First, lack or shortage of democracy. Unfortunately, the majority of Muslim countries in this region, for historical reasons, are deprived of progressive democracy, and this results separation between people and their governments. I find this, I'll give you an example, like a house, like a home. Suppose the owner of a house leaves the door open and walks away. Obviously, it is obvious thieves would steal the valuable items in the house. In such a case, the owner of the house is not much less guilty than the thief. People who are distancing themselves from their government is the same. People who are hungry. People who are not enjoying individual freedom. People who don't have freedom of speech and expression. Those who can, without having the right connection, who cannot gain proper employment according to their education unless they have connections. People who see their youth in jail. In short, people in despotic societies, whether religious despotism or political despotism. These people do not want to, cannot support their governments. These people, under military invasion, are easily tricked and they welcome the enemy. Or they stay in their homes and they do not want to sacrifice their life for a despotic government. An obvious example is Iraq. Years of despotic government had caused so much pain for people that they were unable to resist. And in less than 1 month, the country was in the hands of the foreigners. Even in some news it was heard that the Iraqi people welcomed American soldiers because in their mind they were imagining that American soldiers were somehow better than Saddam's executioners. Therefore, lack of democracy is the most important factor in the disorder in this region. And such disorder does not only allow military invasion, but also produces terrorism. Those people who are deprived, those people who have seen nothing but violence and rifles, and consequently are familiar only with the language of force and weapon. People who have no one to hear their voice. People who have been under tyranny for generations. And the world remained, of course, indifferent toward them. It is possible that these people go insane and set up a fire to burn themselves and others. These people, if these people lived under an honest and democratic government, if these people were not hanged or jailed for expressing their political criticism, if they would voice their demands through appropriate political channels instead of guerrilla acts, most probably the world today would have had a different rotation. And now, let us see what is the explanation of the governments of this region for disrespecting democracy. They argue that Islam is not compatible with democracy. And since their people are Muslims, and Islamic governments consider themselves as representative and preserver of religion of people, hence they should act according to Islamic regulations, not according to democratic principles. Of course, for these people, Islam is only the government's interpretation of religion. And they void and annul all interpretations given by other Muslims and religious intellectuals. These governments take any criticism of the action of government's institutions as equal to criticism of religion, and consider their opponent as hypocrites and hence guilty of capital crime. They believe that since democratic position and human rights are from the West, therefore they cannot correspond with the culture of the East, particularly Islamic culture. They accuse freedom fighters as supporters of the West, traitors, and the punishment for such accusations is imprisonment. Some of these governments, in order to justify their views, rely on terms such as Islamic democracy and or the rights of Muslim human being. When these governments face criticism, they defend their stance by holding on to the argument of Islamic democracy. However, democracy has a similar meaning and definition, is equal in the East and in the West, and there is no Islamic or Christian democracy. Fortunately, a united front of Muslim intellectuals, regardless of political borders, is established. And it's a good news for the liberation of Muslims. This united front has no name, has no leader, has no center or branches, and it is located in the heart of any Muslim who cannot tolerate tyranny and who cannot accept nonsense in the name of religion. Religious intellectuals, unfortunately, their numbers are increasing in Islamic countries, are challenging the Islamic governments, and based on explanation coming from heart of religion, they're proving that every action of the government, even in the name of Islam, is not according to Islam. They are trying to stop the manipulation of the name of Islam, using the name of Islam, and they are screaming. They are screaming that Islam is compatible with democracy. We can be Muslim and respect democracy. We can be Muslims and respect human rights. Islam is a religion of equality. Islam disagrees with dictatorship. Muslims should not be tricked by despotic bullies, such increasing fronts of Muslim intellectual are the beginning of democracy in the Middle East. And now, the second reason for war and disorder in the Middle East. Fortunately or unfortunately, Islamic countries of this region have rich resources such as oil. The main artery of the world of technology is in control of this region. Imagine, only for 3 months, the export of oil from Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Bahrain are cut. What a catastrophe would would, would be created in the West, particularly the United States. Therefore, the Middle East, because of its wealth, becomes a target of greed. Exploitation and colonization, visible ones and invisible ones, are there. The new colonizers, are not in good relationship with those independent governments which aim to protect the benefits of their people. They are in good relations with their protégé governments rather than with the independent-minded individuals. One good example is the American coup of 28 مرداد, 18 August in Iran, which resulted in the fall of Dr. Mossadegh, the national leader of Iran, and for years, making the Iranian people bear a grudge against the United States for years. Of course, time passes, and that affects everything, even in the fashion of colonialism, colonizers' policy. The present new colonizers are not acting like 50 years ago. They don't have the same policy. However, the goal and the destination are the same, and that is plundering national wealth. And unfortunately, due to the fact that the people of the region, because they are unhappy with their repressive governments, they do not support their government, they do not resist. And this is the most dangerous problem of our time. Therefore, to establish a true democracy, not a superficial one, in all Muslim countries in the region, depends on long-lasting peace and long-lasting tranquility in the Middle East. When a democratic government in a country, cuts the hands of the colonizers, because people's resistance, people's support can put any power in its place. In democratic governments, people become acquaintances. People learn about appropriate political discourse. There is no need for arms and terror. Therefore, gradually, terrorism will disappear. The conscientious and liberated people are aware that they should comply and be in harmony with other countries. Hence, they try to move side by side cultural and economic policies worldwide. Ultranationalism will be reduced. Fundamentalism will be reduced. And this is what democracy would bring. We are hoping for the day that real democracy would be established in all Muslim countries, and people would govern their faith. I know, but I say looks like a dream. In the middle of the existing unrest in the Muslim world, I have a dream. I'm talking about a dynamic Islam. That not only totally complies with democracy and human rights, but also it can comply and be ready to carry it throughout the world. In this dream, I see a universal humanity. A human being feels the pain and agony of other human beings, in a way as if it is his or her own pain and agony. Yes, I am dreaming. I believe dreaming is an important part of humans' history. It has always been there. Our challenge today, here, is to dream. However, we must act realistically. And remember, that many of humanity's accomplishments have started with a dream. Thank you.
In one moment, the translator, Dr. Deray, will come to the stage and she will translate a few questions from the audience. There are microphones in the aisle, and those of you who would like to ask a question, we would ask you to line up. Because of our late start, we may only have time for a few, but we are happy to receive them, and they will be translated from English into Farsi, and then the response will be translated from Farsi back to English.
خانم دکتر عبادی، من ایرانی کانادایی هستم و با اجازه شما سوالم انگلیسی میخوام بپرسم ازتون.
sorry. Dr. Ebadi, I'm a Canadian, an Iranian citizen, and with your permission, I'd like to ask my question in English.
First of all, I want to congratulate you in your achievements. You make us proud every day. After 24 years being away from Iran, I went there 2 years ago for an energy conference and a visit. I was there 10 days. I was pleasantly surprised to see the improvement in basic infrastructures, especially in my hometown of Urumiyeh in Azerbaijan. But I was saddened to see that most people weren't happy. My question to you, if you wish to answer, is how is the life in Iran really? And who is leading that country? On one hand, we have an elected president. On the second, we have a supreme leader. Who's the boss?
I'm sorry, sir, I did not get the last part of your... Before, what did you say before, who's the boss?
I said, in the one hand, we have an elected president. Secondly, we have a supreme leader. And who's the boss? Thanks.
از محبت شما ممنونم.
Thank you very much for your kindness.
اوضاع در ایران
Situation in Iran
مشکلاتی داره در زمینه دموکراسی و حقوق بشر.
has certain problems concerning democracy and human rights.
درصد بیکاری در ایران زیاده.
Unemployment is high in Iran.
جوانهای ما آزادی فردی و اجتماعی بیشتر میخواهند.
Our young generation are seeking for more individual and social freedom.
و به همین دلیل
And due to this reason,
که طبق آمار یونسکو ایران بالاترین فرار مغزها رو داشته.
according to the statistics of UNESCO, Iran shows the highest number of people with brain leaving the country.
و این برای ایران یک فاجعه است.
And this is a catastrophe for Iran.
و گناهش به گردن جوانهایی نیست که از ایران بیرون آمدند.
And those young generation who left Iran, they are not guilty of that.
گناهش به گردن حکومتی است که نمیتواند جوانهاش رو نگه داره.
The guilty part is the government. The guilty part is the government who cannot protect its young generation.
و اما در مورد اینکه در ایران قدرت واقعی دست کیه؟
And now about the question who is in charge in Iran.
من 25 سال در ایران بعد از انقلاب زندگی کردم، یعنی از ابتدای انقلاب.
Since the beginning of the revolution for 25 years in Iran.
من نمیدونم. اگه شما میدونین به منم
I
بگید.
do not know. If you know him, let me know.
The last part that she said was, I don't know.
The last part, I do not know him, the man who's in charge, who's the boss. If you know him, let me know.
خانم ادوی ببخشید اما من باید انگلیسی ازتون بپرسم.
Dr. Ebadi, I'm sorry, but I have to ask one question in English.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate you in winning the Nobel Prize and joining the ranks of other dreamers like Lester B. Pearson, Martin Luther King, and Mother Teresa. However, it's my belief that for every drop of accolade,
every drop of
praise,
برای هر قطره
there should come a shower of skepticism. So, as both a proud yet skeptical Iranian, I ask you the following question. Your work as a human rights activist has been laudable. Yet to what extent do you believe that your role as a Middle Eastern female Muslim has attributed to bringing you the Nobel Peace Prize? In other words, to what extent do you acknowledge the idea that you have been given the Nobel Prize for what you've come to represent rather than for what you've come to produce?
خیلی خوشحالم که این سوالو مطرح میکنی.
that you're asking me this question.
اما جوابشو من نمیدونم.
But I don't know the answer for it.
بعد از هیئت جوری نوبل بپرسی.
Why don't you go and ask the juries, Nobel Peace Prize juries?
Okay, Mrs. Ebadi, I'm a Canadian Iranian, but I would rather, I think it's better if I ask my question in Persian, because I would like you to understand them better. Okay, من گمانم بر اینه که شما با علیرغم این که وکیل هستین و قاعدتاً باید از تناقض‌گویی تا اونجایی که آگاهانه بتونید پرهیز بکنید، همچنان گفتارتون پر از تناقضه. مهمترین تناقضی که در گفتار شما هست کانسپت، به انگلیسی ما میگیم کانسپت، یا اون ایده اصلی یا جوهره.
Between
Sorry, I
concepts.
can speak English if you want to, but I'm wondering if you understand. Okay. So I go word by word then. کلمه میگم. من معتقدم که
I believe
شما گفتارتون
that
پر از تناقضه.
you speak contradiction.
مهمترین تناقض گفتارهای
The most
شما
important contradiction in your speech, in your sayings,
بین دریافت خودتون از
is
اسلام
between your comprehension, your personal comprehension of Islam
و حقوق بشر
and human rights,
و به طور کلی تمام موازین جهانی معنوی و
and in general, all international spiritual beliefs,
عقاید و فهمی است که جهان امروز از زیستن انسان داره.
ideas and beliefs that today's world right now has for living of a human being.
شما در تمام گفتارهایی که تا به حال داشتید
In all your speeches, you
و من دنبال کردم
and I have been following
من این چیز رو دیدم که شما فکر میکنید که البته روتون نمیاد هیچ وقت بگین، به همین خاطر سوء تفاهم ایجاد میکنید. فکر میکنید این کسانی که بله دوباره تکرار میکنم، فکر میکنید که این کسانی که در ایران به عنوان آیت الله، حجت الاسلام و تمام این کسانی که آقایونی که به عنوان مذهب در ایران دارن حکومت میکنن از کره ماه آمدن، در حالی که به هیچ وجه اینجوری نیست.
You think that all these people who are in Iran, all these ayatollahs and clergies, they all are coming from moon, but they are not. That's not the case.
They are not. It's not the case. اینها ایرانی هستند و اینها و مسلمان هستند.
They are Iranian and they are Muslim.
و اون چیزی که شما خودتون رو تلاش میکنید که در میون پیدا بکنید به عنوان روشن فکر. It's hard, you know. I'm sorry. I would rather to speak in English because
من ترجیح میدم به انگلیسی.
Okay. My main question is سوال اصلی من اینه که سوال اصلی من اینه که در زبان فارسی اصطلاح داریم، بخوام اگه بتونین ترجمه بکنید. شما سوراخ‌ده‌ها رو به طور کلی گم کردید. سوراخ‌ده‌ها رو گم کردین و اونم این سوراخ‌ده‌ها اینه که
My main question is, and if you lady can translate me properly, you have lost the hole for prayers.
Okay, yes, okay. Go ahead. Excuse me, we are in Canada, huh?
Are you talking to me or him?
Hey, دوست عزیزم اشاره کردید که آیت الله هایی که در ایران هستن از کره ماه نیامدن.
You mentioned that those ayatollahs in Iran are not from the moon, are not coming from moon.
و اونها مسلمان و ایرانی هستن.
They are Muslims and they are Iranian.
حرف شما رو قبول دارم.
I agree with you.
اما توجه کنید به خیلی عظیم افرادی که ایرانی هستند و مسلمان و با اینا مخالفن.
But pay attention to all those Iranian that who are Iranian and who are Muslim and they are against them.
Now we will take one last question from the speaker at the back of the room.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry.
I do have a question, and I'll try to get to it in a reasonable time. Thank you for pointing out that human rights are universal, whether in the Middle East or in the West. Thank you for pointing out that the war against terrorism can violate human rights. I'd like to point out an example right here in Canada. In our country, and the Honourable Justice Minister Kotler is surely aware of it, we have security certificates, whereby, at the behest of the Canadian intelligence services, a person can be arrested, imprisoned indefinitely, have no access to a lawyer, no charges being made, and a judge being appointed by the intelligence services. So internally, democracies are not necessarily peaceful. Externally, while democracies tend to be peaceful with other democracies, political science research indicates that democracies are quite violent with non-democracies, even more so than non-democracies themselves.
Because you're going too fast
Okay.
for the translator, and I have to ask you now to ask the question.
And here it goes. So my question is the following. If democracy is not a sufficient condition for peace, what are the other necessary conditions to attain that objective? Thank you. If democracy is not the sufficient condition for peace, then what are the necessary conditions, other necessary conditions, to achieve that objective? Thank you.
اجازه بدین من راجع به دموکراسی
Please allow me.
راجع به دموکراسی مطلبی بگم.
I would mention something to you about democracy.
دموکراسی مثل یک گله، دامن باید بهش برسین، آبش بدین.
Democracy is just like a flower. You have to take care of it. You have to water it.
وقتی که به یک گل رسیدگی نمیشه پژمرده میشه. دموکراسی هم همینطوره.
When you neglect the flower dies. Democracy is the same.
بنابراین تلاش برای ارتقاء دموکراسی وظیفه همیشگی انسان هاست.
Therefore, efforts to advance democracy is a permanent responsibility of all human beings.
و اگر حکومتی با دموکراسی سر کار بیاد
And if a government would come into power through democratic procedures,
این یک چارچوبی برای عملکرد داره.
Such government would have a framework for action.
و چارچوبش حقوق بشره.
And that framework is human rights.
در حقیقت دموکراسی و حقوق بشر وقتی که توأم بشوند جامعه سالمه.
In fact, democracy and human rights, when they are together, then that society is healthy.
و ما آرزوی چنین جامعه‌ای رو داریم.
And we are hoping for such society.
هم برای خودمون در ایران،
In Iran,
هم برای شما
and for you,
و هم برای همه مردم جهان.
and for all people in the universe.
I'm very sorry that we don't have time for more questions. But before I introduce Vice Principal Hurtubise for the closing remarks, I want to take a moment so that you can join me in thanking the wonderful team of people who made this event possible. They are Jennifer Towell, Lynn Griffin, Maria Keenan, Barbara Whiston, Leisha Lakuvi, Patrick Guttridge, Kirsten Martin, Sylvia Otvos, Gina Sebastio, Donna Tullio, Teresa Lee, Amy Buckland, and the student ushers. We also owe a great debt of gratitude for Dr. Minou Deray, a McGill alumna, for her eloquent translation from Farsi to English this morning. Today's live webcast has been in English only. It will be archived almost immediately in English. Et bientôt après, vous pouvez le trouver sur le site web de McGill en farsi et en français. And finally, I have to remind you to please leave your headsets on your seats at the end. As Vice Principal of Research at McGill University, Dr. Jacques Hurtubise is responsible for the Beatty Memorial Lecture Series. It is to him that the honor of the final words belong. Vice Principal Hurtubise.
Thank you. It's indeed a great honor as chair of the Beatty Memorial Lectures Committee to thank today's speaker. This year is the 50th anniversary of the Beatty Lectures, with indeed the first Beatty lecture being given by the then Vice President of India 50 years ago this month. The Beatty family established these lectures in honor of Sir Edward Beatty, who had spent many years as president of the Canadian Pacific Railway, but was also the longtime chancellor and chair of the board of McGill. Their purpose was to bring to McGill and to the Montreal community international scholars whose lectures would inspire and provoke debate, a true manifestation of freedom of speech. This morning's talk has, I believe, fulfilled the Beatty Lectures mandate most eloquently. The full house is testimony to the importance of Dr. Ebadi's visit. And the attention and applause, I think, is an indication that it truly struck a chord. There are very few people who live a life driven by truly great ideas. and there are perhaps fewer still who have great courage. But to combine both in such a way is rare indeed. So on behalf of all of us here from McGill, from the Montreal community, I would like to thank Dr. Ebadi for a truly inspiring lecture.